Hello. So I'm going to get my sourdough starter revived, I guess is the word for it, because that's what I can remember right now. So I'm going to feed it tonight, and then I'm going to put it in my proofer, which is down there, because I keep my house kind of cold because it's expensive to heat with oil. So I normally keep my house on about 64 degrees. So I found out when I started doing sourdough bread that wasn't really too conducive to make sourdough. It makes it hard for it to bubble up and activate. So I'm going to feed my sourdough starter. I always do that when I get home on Fridays. So I put 113 grams of my old starter and 113 grams of flour. This is whole wheat flour. And then I'm going to add 113 grams of water. And then I just mix all that together and put it in the proofer, and tomorrow morning it'll be all ready for me to use. So I will be right back with the water. So here's my water, and I use warm water. And I will just mix this in a few minutes. So I make 2 batches, because I have really enough to make 3, but I only make 2. So I'm going to zero this out. I need 113 grams of starter again. So put the extra on the lid that I don't need right now. And then 113 grams of flour. And it's better to weigh everything out. It's more accurate. And then 113 grams of water. I will find a sourdough starter recipe and put that in the comment section so you can start your own sourdough starter. A friend of mine was gracious and gave me some of hers, so this sourdough starter is over 5 years old. So it's nice and sour, and it has a really, really good taste. You can use all-purpose flour. Every once in a while, instead of using whole wheat flour, I will use all-purpose flour. You can also use, but I don't do that all the time. Wheat feeds it really well and gets it really active if you need to do that. You can also use rye flour. I'm not a big fan of rye bread, so I've not done that, but I'm not sure how much of a rye flavor it gives it. But if that is your thing, just play around with it and see. If you use it one time and you don't really like it, you can switch back to whole wheat. You can add all-purpose, whichever one that you want. So I'm getting this together. I've got brats on the grill, and I've got French fries in the air fryer. Steve and the boys will be here in a few minutes, and Steve and I are going to play at my high school. They're putting on Mamma Mia, so we're going to go see that tonight, and I'm super excited. So I'm just trying to throw this stuff together so it's ready to go in the morning, and I will continue this video in the morning when I actually make sourdough bread. It's a several-day process. You're not necessarily active for several days, but it has to rise for a while, and I will explain more of that later on. But you can see my sourdough bread here, and I've got sourdough bagels in this container. So it feeds my family. I know what's in it. If you don't plan on using it within a certain amount of time, I suggest freezing it because it will start to mold within about a week. So anyway, so this is going to be my sourdough starter. This you can put in your composter. I'm just throwing it away for today, or you can, a friend of mine said that I actually got this sourdough starter from. She says you can make crackers out of it. I've not done that at this point. You could use it to make another batch and gift it to a friend. So this is just going in my proofer down here. This keeps it, I have it set on 75 degrees. It folds down when I don't use it. They can be kind of pricey, but I found mine on, I want to say eBay. So I didn't pay full price for it. I think it's about $200 full price. I did not even probably pay half of that. I can't remember exactly how much, but I got a really good deal. And it has made my sourdough baking so much better because it's at a higher temperature than I keep my house. So I will be back tomorrow. You have a good evening. Okay, now I'm back and I'm going to make pretzels. So I've already made my bread dough. I've already made my bagel dough. So now I'm going to make my pretzel dough. So last night I fed the starter and it has gotten super active and much, much bigger. So this is my second bowl because remember I made two. And this is all that's left of the first bowl for making sourdough bread dough and sourdough bagel dough. So you can combine the two. So I'm going to make pretzel dough out of this batch. It will not take all of it. And I'm going to use what is left to feed my starter again, let it sit out on the counter for a few hours, and then it will go in the fridge and sit and rest until I'm ready for it next week. You're supposed to use it, I think, every few days if you leave it on the counter. I do not have the time for that, so I keep it in the fridge. Then on Friday afternoon, I pull it out, I feed it, put it in the proofer. It becomes active overnight, and then I can use it Saturday morning. This is the timetable that works for me. So for the pretzels, I'm going to use 100 grams of starter. So again, you really need a scale. That was almost perfect. There we go. So I still have a good bit left. I'm going to do the same thing that I did last night. 113 grams of starter, 113 grams of whole wheat flour or all-purpose or rye, whatever your heart desires, and 113 grams of water. So with my pretzels, I need 255 grams of water, which I haven't gotten yet. So I need to be up to 355 on here. It's just a little over 1 or 2 grams is not going to make a difference. Then I need 40 grams of sugar or honey. I'm going to use sugar today because I don't feel like messing with honey. Either is fine. I use maple syrup in the bagels. I'm sure that's fine too. So I need 40 grams. So $3.95. So there we go. I need 10 grams of salt. And I'm just using fine sea salt. So 10 grams. Okay. And then I'm going to mix this together and get the sourdough starter dissolved. This is the same bowl that I made my bagel dough in. The bagel dough I transferred to a different bowl while I make this, and it's in the oven resting. The oven is not on. I turned it on a little bit prior on the keep warm setting for like a minute, and then it warms up the oven just a little bit, not enough to cook it, but enough to make the oven warm, because my house, I keep it relatively cold here because of heating prices. So, and I'm going to need 500 grams of bread flour. So I like to zero this out. And then I'm going to add 500 grams of bread flour. I got company, so I will have to pause here in a second. They don't want to be on video. So 500 grams of bread flour. If I'm a little over, I just take it off the top. And then I'm going to mix this. Now when I'm finished mixing this, unlike the bagels and the bread, I can just let it sit for 8 to 12 hours. So this will go in the proofer. My sourdough bread dough goes in the proofer. And then the bagels I keep in the oven, because the oven kind of maintains a warmer temperature there as well. Again, in the sourdough bread video, I don't use my KitchenAid for my sourdough bread. I tried to use it a couple of times for the bagels, but it wanted to strain my motor, so I didn't want to do that. So now I'm to the point that I need it all by hand. I take off my rings when I'm working with dough because I don't want to get flour and dough and stuff all in between my prongs and this and that. So it just keeps my rings clean. And so I'm just kneading this. Another trick that I found is I pull out one of my stools that I bought for my island, get on top, and it gives me more leverage. So it's easier to work with. I kind of get a workout when I do this. I made these one snow day because I was making sourdough bread that same day for a friend of mine, and Christian was like, "Ooh, those smell good." I said, "Well, try one." And he absolutely loved them. One turned into 4. And so in like a day and a half between him and Steve, all the pretzels were gone. So last weekend when I made them for the second time, so I've added it to my weekend bread making, I told them both, I was like, "Look, I'm making pretzels," we say we're both super happy about. I said, "But I'm only making them on the weekend. So when they're gone till the next weekend." So I just pour this out onto my island, and it helps me knead it a little bit more. So all these bits will get incorporated into my dough. This is way easier to knead than my bagel dough, and it doesn't take nearly as long for some reason. So, well, there's not as much flour, so it's not as dry. So I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to cover it with, I have the reusable paper towels that I bought from Etsy, basically just cotton towels that are pretty. So I will wet that, and I'm going to put my dough in this bowl, and then it will sit for 8 to 12 hours in the proofer, and then I will pull it out and make my pretzel shapes. I'm still working on that. I have not perfected that yet, but that's okay. So everything is almost incorporated. And then, so I just kind of work it into a ball, and then I'm going to put it in there. I'm going to cover it with my towel, and it's going to go in my proofer, and that'll be all for several hours. Okay, so I put my bagels, let me turn. So my pretzel dough is in that red thing. And then here is my sourdough dough, but they both won't fit in there at the same time next to each other. So I put in a little cup and put it in like that, and then it stacks and the top fits on perfect. So sometimes you gotta figure things out instead of just buying more. Okay, so my pretzel dough is ready. So it's considerably bigger. And so I'm just gonna take this out of my bowl, and you can hear cinnamon, because heaven forbid I talk to somebody else. And I'm gonna divide this into, it says 16 and I've been doing 16, but I think I may do 12 today, or start off, and we'll see what happens with one of those. Well, no, I think I'll continue with 16, so I'm gonna have to get another baking sheet because I forget that it's gonna take 2. So I'm gonna divide this into half, and I'm just gonna keep going in half until I have 16 balls. And I kind of like to shape them back into balls and then divide them to try to keep it as even as possible. So now I have 4, so then I'm going to divide each 4th into 4. I'm going to take a second to turn off my oven because I turned it on to warm. So, because these will still need to rise for another hour. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and I'm not really doing much to them. I'm just kind of making a small little ball because I'm going to end up turning these into ropes. So I'm just getting them out of my way because this is going to become my work area. So once I finish this, they're going to rise for about another hour, and then they'll be ready to boil, and then they'll bake in the oven for a pretty short amount of time. And then I will be done with sourdough today, and then tomorrow when I wake up I will work on what is it? Sourdough bread and bagels. Okay, so I got my other baking sheet and lined it with parchment paper. So now I'm just going to take each individual piece and roll it out into like rope. Some of them are smaller than the others, and that's okay. This is the part that I'm not the best at though. So you're supposed to roll it out into like a snake, and then you lift it up and make a U, and then you twist twice, and then you come down and put it, I didn't need to do that time, on here. So sometimes after I finish that, this one's relatively small, that one actually looks pretty good, and I put it on my baking sheet. So I continue doing these until I get all 16 completed. This does take an egg wash, so when you'll see that when we get to that point. So I'll take an egg and beat it and glaze the top with it, and then I'll add my salt. So this one's bigger, obviously. So you wrap, and then I just fix it down on the bottom. And they look really, really small now. They will puff up. So that one has more twists than that one. So I'll show you. they're not all the same, but that's okay. It's my kitchen. I'm not selling them. They taste just the same. It doesn't matter if you twist them at all or what you do to them. So up, twist, twist. I'm gonna do one more, which I think is too many, but I don't know what I'm doing. So again, I have 3 done so far. So I'm gonna finish these up, and then I'm just gonna cover them with one of my flour sack towels or whatever you call it, and let it sit in the oven a little bit. And I have a movie that I'm gonna finish watching, and I bought one of those weighted hula hoops, so I'm gonna do the hula hoops on while I watch the movie. It is about 5:30 at night, so I was done with the pretzels probably around 9. So after about 8 hours, because they're in that proofer, they're ready to go. So it's an all-day bread adventure when I'm doing this, but that's okay. My family loves it. It's cheaper than buying pretzels at the grocery store. Market Basket here sells like this tub of pretzels. I don't know if they're sourdough. They're really good looking though. And I want to say, I don't know how much they are now, but the last time before inflation got completely out of control, they were like $5 for the tub. So this isn't, I mean, basically I just have the flour, and some of these are teeny tiny, and that's okay. Again, it's not going to be perfect. The more I do this, I think this is the 3rd time me making these, the more I do it, the easier it'll get and the better I will get with it. So you just keep at it, right? So I'm going to keep at this, speaking of keeping at it, and I will check back in. So this video will be over tonight, but the sourdough bread and the sourdough bagels will not be completed till tomorrow morning. So that is the one nice thing about these bagels. It is done normally the same day. So I will be back when they are ready and have risen and poofed up a little, and we'll get them started. Okay, so the pretzels have poofed up, so you can see. What I'm doing right now is I got the water on to boil. I've already added, I think it calls for a tablespoon of baking soda and a tablespoon of brown sugar. So that's in there. If not, it should be fine. I'm just lifting the pretzels off. It makes it easier for me to get it into the water once it starts boiling. I have my oven preheating at 425. So when my water starts boiling, I will boil my pretzels on each side for 30 seconds. And then I will take my egg wash, which is just a beaten egg, and put that on top with some coarse salt. This is salt that we got when we bought those frozen pretzels a while ago. And I just saved the leftover salt because we really didn't use it that much. So it's come in really handy. Or you can just buy coarse sea salt and that will work as well. So then once I boil these and get them back on here, add the egg wash on top and the salt, then I will bake them at 425. I believe it's 14 to 22 minutes or 18 to 22 minutes, something like that. So my water is almost ready to boil. So I will come back when it is boiling, because you know a watch pot never boils. Okay, so my water is boiling, so I'm going to add my pretzels 3 or 4 at a time and get those boiling 30 seconds on each side. And I double checked, it's 2 tablespoons of baking soda and 1 tablespoon of brown sugar. And I will include the recipe in the description. I'm pretty sure there's a video that the person whose recipe that I'm using, they actually made, so kind of like double, but this is just how I do it. So I'm just sharing what I do for my friends who may not find this otherwise. And if you're counting, it may not be exactly 30 seconds, it's all good. I like to put them in upside down first, that way when, or top side down first, that way when they come out, the bottom part is facing down, so it's easier to put them back on the sheet. Sorry, just trying to count in my head. So that's about 30 seconds. So I'm going to flip these over, cut them for about 30 seconds on each side. And like I said, I'm going to brush on some egg wash. And by that point, it should almost be ready to go into the oven. I'm going to turn it down just a little. I don't want it to start overflowing. And again, I like to put top side down when I put them in. Because I will end up flipping them, and so after I flip them and then when I go to take them out, they will be easier to get back on the tray, and the bottom or the top part won't get smashed if you put it bottom side down. I may put the ones that I did first back in for just a few more seconds because I don't think I left them in there long enough. They're not as puffy as these ones are now. And I will do the same thing to the bagels tomorrow morning. But I think they are only 15 seconds per side. So there's my oven telling me that it's ready. Okay, so I'll put the other ones back in for just a few more seconds, and now I'm taking them out. I turned the water off. So once I get these out, I will brush on the egg wash, sprinkle some salt, and get these babies in the oven, and they will cook for 12 to 14 minutes. I double check that time as well. So just brush these on. Or brush this on. And then I will be finished with Saturday's bread. And then tomorrow morning I will make the bagels. I will boil them and bake them, and the sourdough bread. The sourdough bread goes in first, and then when the first 30 minutes of it is complete, and then I turn the oven down to 400, that's when I put in the bagels. And the Asiago cheese I love on the bagels, but honestly when it cooks it smells like feet. I don't know why. but it does. And my kids complain about how the house smells after, and they have super sensitive noses, and so do I. So I can't imagine where they get that from. It's just kind of funny. My youngest hates it when I make elderberry syrup too, because he says it makes the whole house smell. And I don't disagree. I made French onion soup one time, and I swear I smelled onions all night. I dreamed about onions, because you have to chop up so many onions, and it cooks. And it was so good, and my husband loves French onion soup, and I was like, okay, I think from now on we'll order it out, because I can't smell onions all night long. So you can put as much or as little salt as you want. You could probably forego the salt if you want. I think it just adds a good flavor. You could probably add cinnamon sugar if you want the sweet version, or just add no salt, and when it comes out, dip them in cinnamon sugar while they're hot, and it will kind of melt to it. So I love the cinnamon sugar pretzels at Apple Annie's, the little pretzel bites. Those are my favorite, but I can't really eat those anymore. So these are going in the oven, 425, for 12 to 14 minutes. And I will probably rotate them halfway through and switch racks so they can both get really super brown. I will show you the end here in a minute. Okay, so the pretzels are finished. So I'm just gonna bring them out of the oven. I'm gonna keep them, I'm gonna transfer them to one sheet pan. I may put this one in there for a couple more minutes. It's not as brown as the others, but as you can see, they look so good. And my husband and my youngest son love them. I don't think Tyler and Brian have tried them yet, so that's coming soon. So I'm just gonna let the others brown up for just another minute or two, and then I'm gonna move them to a cooling rack, and I'll probably put them in an airtight container tomorrow. If you put them in there while they're still super warm, you're gonna get a lot of condensation, and then the salt dissolves. Even when I let them cool, the salt dissolves. I don't know what that's about. They still taste good. They're just really good as soon as they come out of the oven. So, almost. So that is the end of pretzels. So I started doing 3 different types of sourdough stuff this morning around 7:30. It's 7:30 tonight. My bagels are in the fridge. My sourdough bread dough is in the fridge doing its thing, and it will be ready to bake tomorrow. So I hope this was helpful. You guys have a good night. Don't forget, if you like what you see, please subscribe and save. Have a good day.